it's always been like, even to this day, I hear a lot of artists talk about like, you know, like you said, it almost being a form of therapy or like an outlet for you to like see, you know, speak on what you're seeing and, you know, let your feelings out and stuff. So
Hell
it
yeah.
started like that
Hell
with you too.
yeah. It was just, it started off like that, and it looked, you know, you see fun when you like you looking on TV, and you know you see motherfuckers doing that, and
Yeah,
you know everybody want to be a part of something. So
right.
you like, if you see people gravitating to this art,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and you feel like you could do it, you know, you trying to find your place and navigating through your journey. You
right.
know what I mean? And I just thought I was good at that shit.
Hell yeah.
Like, I could do this. You know what I mean?
So, what? I know it sounds like you brought up a couple of groups from here, right?
Yeah.
What? Who were like
Uh,
the main rap groups or like the rappers that you know what I'm saying people like looked up to out here? Who you feel like were dope at that time when you
Groups.
were first coming up?
92. This is before a lot of, you know, before M.N.L.D and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, you had Brothers Most Wanted. Shout out to Ronell. Ronell Albright, check him out, man. He got Brothers Most Wanted barbecue. You know, he do his thing with the food truck now. But when I was younger, like he was one of the first people to give me a chance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
An opportunity. Um, like let me feature on their music. You know what I'm saying? I was a persistent young dude, so you know I seen they little tape. They had a tape cassette, and it was like this fluorescent blue, shiny film in it. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
So
It's like
before
some
the
of the
CDs
first
and all that.
people you see with that. So you know the number on there. I'm one of them. You know I was one of them little young dudes. So I'm gonna call the number. You know what I mean? I'm gonna let you hear me rap over the phone, whatever
Yeah,
we had to do. Come to find out, they lived around the corner. So you know my little badass. I'm walking up the street all the time, whatever. What's up? We just built a relationship like that, and then so that's Brothers Most Wanted, and then you have BHP, Black Hole Posse.
mm,
Um, you know what I'm saying? They gave me some opportunities too. Just you know, showed me interest that they was fooling with me. Shout out to AK Love, uh, and my nigga Sandman. Um, you know what I'm saying? Sandman, he gave me an opportunity to do some music when I was like 13 years old or something like that. You know what I mean? Before I was really recording like that. I probably had recorded once before that.
yeah,
And then, obviously, moving forward after that, when you moving towards 94, 95, you know, Boozilla. And then I can't forget, you know, Kingdom was moving the crowd back then. They had a group called GSOM.
yeah,
Shout out Dragon E too. So they, you know, it was some people doing it that, you know, around the section that inspired you to do it. Like, you
yeah.
know, shit, this shit could be done, and
Right.
you know, I was already figuring out how to do shit. You know what I'm
Hell yeah.
saying? Just different ways, but you know what I'm saying. So
Okay. What was the sound like back then? Cause you know you named a bunch of like West Coast legends. Would you say like Colorado had a lot of West Coast influence as far as the sound out here back then and whatnot?
it was it was infused. I say for me, like it was this East Coast West Coast thing. You know, some
Mm.
people more
Okay.
gravitated to hip hop, and then the West Coast too. It was like the West Coast, but then hip hop. So it's like it's an influence there with both of them. And and back then, you know what I'm saying. And that's kind of how that was. But Colorado, you know, has a huge, you know, West Coast influence, especially
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially in my era growing up. You know what I'm saying. That's just kind of we could more relate to the lifestyle and what was going on. It was like really more relatable
Mm-hmm.
because we had the gang culture and shit like that. You know, whereas East Coast, You know, it got cold out here and shit, and it was some
Right.
dope artists who was pioneers coming from the East Coast. But for me, I could say I was more influenced by West Coast and somewhat East Coast as
Right.
well, because I love doing little hip hop style shit, just like, you know, shit with substance and
Like New York, Biggie
shit,
type,
like, you feel me?
Jay-Z.
I got a song called "It's You," produced by uh, 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 um, Mass Pride from Food Chain. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
it got a East Coast vibe to
Yeah.
it, and you know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's interesting you say that because nowadays I feel like you still hear the West Coast, but you hear a lot of the Midwest, like Detroit and Chicago stuff. But I'm sure back then, you know, Midwest probably wasn't as like popping as it is now. So
Yeah, I
people
mean,
probably really just listen to New York. What about the South? Were people listening to a lot of the South?
yeah, I mean, coming up, you know, cause UGK was popping,
Mm.
and so, and then you had Scarface and Tila and just people like that, and so we was influenced by South shit too, and A Ball, MJG, and you know, it was like this connection, this
Yeah.
crazy connection with the South and the West. I think a lot of people gravitated to West Coast shit. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, whether people say it or not, I don't give a fuck. Even East Coast people, like, one of the biggest niggas to come out of the East Coast, 50 Cent, like, you know, all that shit in the club. Some of his
Right.
biggest hits is West Coast sounds and shit. But,
That's interesting.
so West Coast really influenced a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know what I'm saying, from language getting stolen or, you know,
Yeah.
shit like that. Because, you know, I feel like it was more of, when you get down to the nitty gritty, like people, it was more relatable to people growing up in inner cities. And, you know, if we use the concept of soul food, you know, it's the scraps. So you making something out of nothing.
Mm.
And I feel like with that West Coast shit, you know, a lot of times when niggas make up words, you know, you create the narrative of what y'all mean and how y'all communicate with each other, but we understand it, and
Mm.
you know, it's like a code, and you know what I'm saying, all of that type of stuff be valuable where you could, like, you know, affect,
Right.
impact the culture with your lingo or your lifestyle, and you know, and it's relatable and it's real, and you know, that's very important. You know what I'm saying? So we come up under that because we can connect to, you know, just to relate to the realness of, um, you know, the different concepts. Like I said,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the different concepts of making nothing, you know, making something out of nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. When would you say you were recording, like taking music serious before M.N.L.D, or was M.N.L.D and your beginnings kind of like the same time? Like,
It went to another level with M.N.L.D. It was like another level. I always just been ambitious with music, like since I was a youngster. So, you know, just coming from when I, you know, first wanted to make something happen or record, you know, I was innovative and shit. So I started recording on um, motherfucking answering machine, my mom's answering machine. So, you know, one tape on one side, them little tapes, and you know, had just the same way they would record and they talk into it to create a
Song.
message and shit. You know, I put a little radio with the beat and I would play. Back in the day, you know, they used to have instrumentals, the Brat and Crisscross or Ice Cube. They all had instrumentals, and you know, you'll
would
find
they
the
be on
value.
like a tape? Or something?
Yeah, you know, the
Instrumentals?
cassette. Yeah,
Okay.
yep, they'd be on the cassette because they have a single and
Yeah.
the A side and B side or whatever. And one side was the instrumental, one side was the.
Oh, really?
You feel me? Yeah, you might want to go to the record store and get you
Yeah.
one just for as a collector, so you
Yeah.
can see like that's culture.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? But so you know, my first experience with mixing comes from that, because you know I had to learn how to adjust it. I
Yeah.
had to adjust how loud the I'm playing the beat so that the shit don't come out distorted. I'm trying to get the best possible sound out of putting a radio next to an answering machine, you know what I'm saying, and pressing record and making sure I'm not rapping too loud or too low and finding the best balance. And that was my introduction to the mix. And I'm like, I kind of like figuring shit out, and you know, that was all of that. So that's you know, as far as my experience with that.
So were you just recording on the phone and then kind of leaving it for when people would call in, or would it literally like record onto a tape and then you would take the tape and like that would actually be like a single or a
Yeah,
song?
it's just right onto the tape.
Damn. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You got to do it all the way through. Ain't no punching in, nothing. You got to remember your shit.
Damn.
And then so it was just exciting because, you know, some older D dealers that kind of used to take us under our wing. We was young niggas. They just like how we moved, and you know, like I'm into music and whoop. And so I used to be able to hop in their old school and ride around with them, little 12, 13-year-old dude. And they throw your tape in the deck, and they got the big ass speaker box in the back with the 12s or the 15s, and they knocking that shit like, yeah, that shit kind of sound kind of good. You know what I mean? That's inspiration. You know, that motivates you to keep going. Like I'm doing something, but you already know you got to get better. You like, I got a vision, but if they're catching on to what I'm doing, and it seems like it's doing something, I'm gonna keep doing it. You know what I'm saying? So. It was like that. It was always a vision to this shit. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's real.
So, I mean, I never hopped into this shit just to do it because it was popular. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just because of that. It's because, you know, I was really passionate about it, and it was an outlet, and I seen a future and different solutions that I could add to it. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I had the power to create a lane. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I didn't know what it was gonna be, but it's like it's something there. You know what I'm saying? So,
couple things on that. One thing, just from you bringing up obviously the answering machine and stuff like that, but also like in the documentary, you know, people would say like you were kind of like the mastermind behind things, or like you would always be innovative and like have ideas and stuff. Where you think that came from, or like, you know, it almost seemed like you were ahead of your time. You know what I'm saying? Like what inspired you and motivated you and like helped you stay innovative. You know what I'm saying? Especially in a time where I'm sure it was like a lot tougher to record music. You know, nowadays you pull up the studio and you know, like you said, people were retrying and stuff, punching in, but you know, back then it was like a whole different process.
Yeah. I mean, to say where it come from, it just kind of spilled over just from just how I grew up, and that pouring over into having a certain mentality about things, like making something out of nothing. So I always felt that I would always be searching for gadgets that can help me accomplish my goal, whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
If I want to make a little speaker box in my room because my mom can't afford to go buy one, we would take a cardboard box and cut it out the size of the speaker and just sit the speaker in that motherfucker. Now you got bass.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Ooh, it just comes from just being innovative and using the things around you. There's tools everywhere, you know what I'm saying? It's probably not written in a book and it's not standard, but you could be creative and do whatever you choose to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could put a speaker at that motherfucking door. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You ask me. But it came from just being innovative and using the tools around me. You know what I'm saying? That's how I looked at it. And, you know, just starting to understand. I had started to understand what I actually needed to, you know, get better at what I was doing.
Right.
Like, I need some more professional equipment. And, you know, I started off with a Casio when it came to beat making, because I used to make beats with my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Me and my brothers, and then we used to just make beats with our mouth, and we would like kind of mimic that mob sound. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit E40 and them was doing, and There's a lot of West Coast shit that we resonated with, and it had a certain vibe and feel that, you know what I'm saying, that's stuck. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, man, this is what we on. It is what it is. And we making beats with our mouth. You know what I'm saying? And from there, I got a Casio, and I would mimic the sounds that, you know, or you know, the melody or whatever it was. And so, what I would do is I would go sound for sound and record one sound at a time. Like I would record on a double tape deck, but I would record, like, say I played the drums all the way through. I would play the kick all the way through, and then I would take that tape and I put it on the left side, and then put another tape. And so while the kick is playing, I would be playing the other sound. Yeah. By the time I'm done, it's hella air in that shit, but I could hear my production and what I did. You know what I'm saying? So it inspired me to keep going and wondering what I'm gonna do next to make it better. You know what I'm saying? Right. The next thing you know, my people, you gotta think, you know, I'm alarming my parents. Like, they seeing me doing this shit and I know what the fuck I'm doing. Yeah. And so by the time I got to the point where I'm asking for a keyboard, like, man, I need this keyboard that I got my eye on. You know, I got some help getting my keyboard. Yeah. You feel what I'm saying? So my stepdad bought me a keyboard, and it was on. You know, once I got something I could actually program and sequence, and man, it was over. So, you know.
So you were not only, you know, obviously rapping at, but engineering, producing, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Marketing, like everything. That's crazy. Think about. Oh, another part of the movie that stuck out to me. So in '92, you won like a battle rap, and you brought home a trophy.
Yeah.
And your mom was like mad at you for like leaving or something, but you came back with the trophy. Like, talk about that and like that moment in your life and how that inspired you, or did that kind of help you keep going and stuff like that?
It did. It was, you know, it was moments like that was, you know, vital to what I was doing, because it was inspirational to, you know, get some confirmation, because I just knew I was passionate about this shit and I loved doing it, and a lot of times I didn't know how to go about it, or, you know, being a 12-year-old, who's gonna let their 12-year-old go to this rap show that teenagers is at? You gotta be 18 and up for real.
Right.
And at 9 at night, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, certain action I wasn't getting, and so, you know, I was, at the time I was fucking with BMW, running on them, Brothers Most Wanted. So I was starting to get in tune by being associated with certain people. I'm hearing about shit like this, okay? You know, they rapping, like I told you, they got a tape out. So they know what's going on. So now my ear is to what they saying, because I'm younger. So, you know, I'm just adamant about going. I wanted to, you know, showcase myself. Right. Me and my homeboy Creature, we went to that motherfucker, man. I had to hop out the window though. You know what I'm saying? My mom already told me I couldn't go. Yeah. But so I act like I was gonna go to sleep, man. I hopped out that motherfucking window. I already told dude, meet me around the corner. They didn't leave me hanging. I went and hopped in that car. We was over somewhere downtown off of Lincoln. It might have been 9th and Lincoln, at one of them little spots that they still got around here. But yup, and that was that. I showed up to that, and I wasn't scheduled to be in it or nothing. You know what I'm saying? It was just like that ambition. Sometimes that's how important it is to just showing up to stuff. Like, I learned the importance of that back then. Like, you know, I'm gonna be ambitious about it. I'm gonna show up. I ain't worried about nobody not including me or not telling me about something that don't matter to me. You know what I'm saying?
That's real. I feel like a lot of people would, you know, if they don't get invited or whatnot, they probably like, nah, I'm good. Like,
they fucking up relationships and everything over there. Right. Sensitive as fuck. You know what I'm saying? I had to bite my tongue so many times, and, you know, it ain't about everybody else. You know, people can only do so much for you anyway. You know what I'm saying? Yo, this is like the music industry, you have to pave your own way, no matter how you like it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You responsible for what you show up for, and if certain shit you wasn't invited or none of that, you can't take it personal because there's so many other opportunities, and that might not have been your route. You feel me? You in charge of your route. Pave your way. Build yourself up. Develop yourself to the point to where you don't even really need nobody. Especially nowadays, it's a do-it-yourself type of thing. You know,
Mm.
build it up. What you doing with your time?
No, that's real.